Welcome in, everybody. You are listening to the Authority Podcast here on the B Podcast Network. Thanks, as always, for being with us. Really appreciate all of you listeners out there who join us here every week. And I'm really pleased to have a great guest today, Ranan Lachman. Ranan is a transformation expert with a bachelor's in computer science and an MBA who has reinvented himself across a variety of radically different worlds, from a jet fighter co-pilot to a management consultant, Wall Street investment banker, and a CEO of multiple technology companies. Ranan lives what he teaches, having relocated to 4 countries across 4 continents. So he spanned a lot of the globe there and even circled the globe for a year with his family while managing a startup. He is currently founder and CEO of Better Speech and has a book out called Comfort Override, Future Proof Your Life as AI Flips Your World. We're going to talk about all of that and more, I think. Ranan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ross, for having me. I'm really excited to do it with you.
Yeah, and so I think we'll start our conversation with some of the topics around special education and AI, some of the things you are working on with Better Speech, and then also get into some of the conversations, some of the topics in your book that are so relevant to our leaders who are listening for themselves and their own professional journeys. I think for their organizations as well, some of the things to be aware of. But would love to start with that piece around schools and special education and what they're doing and what they're challenged by, right? Can you talk us through what are some of the biggest challenges that schools are facing right now with special education, and how can AI be a solution to some of these things?
It's a great question, Ross. So definitely schools and districts we see are struggling continuously with compliance, and that's kind of becoming more increasing with some the budget constraints that they're seeing now, both from federal and kind of state levels. So they have high caseload, very complex compliance requirement that's becoming more and more complex. Unfortunately, we continue to see staff shortages of providers, SLP, OTs, PTs, which can create a burnout of the staff. So while we want our staff to do what they trained and being certified for, which is providing direct therapy for students, we're seeing more and more paperwork, unfortunately, being needed to done, so less time with the students. So educators needs to track their services and reporting all the time. And I think this is where AI can come in and really help improve that. So I run Better Speech. One of our product is Streamline, which is kind of mission control for special education systems. And what we're seeing is a huge reduction in paperwork, about 90% in reduction. So teams that used to spend 7 hours creating an IP now spend 5 to 10 minutes using AI and the ability of AI to create the same IP report, which obviously free them to do more important work, which is direct therapy. Another thing that we see is more and more is like parent engagement. So parents used to be just invited to the meetings, to school, and get an update on their student, on their child there. But now with advanced AI and with the ability to provide more engaged dashboard to parents, they can get higher visibility to their child progress and their outcome. And all those systems are becoming, with AI, a lot more reactive, okay? They're focusing on problems, okay, that are arising in real time, rather than waiting to be reactive with some kind of the old software that exists out there that might do auditing of IP reports or just reporting on problems after they happen. Now you can take all of that. One of the functions that we have is we call it Magic Wand, because it's not this magical thing for the educator that come to their office in the morning and click on a button and just analyze all your operation in district, in 94 schools, and in real time can show you, oh, in 2 months, I'm going to have a problem with that and that school. Why? Because I have providers that are going on maternity leave. I need to hire them replacement now. And those type of things did not exist in the past because the complexity of creating that analysis was too big for individual schools and definitely districts and even some schools. And now you can do it in real time. So very interesting challenges. And I think that AI provides to many of them, if you do them right, carefully, and we might talk about it later, the notion of how to implement AI correctly within your district, it can solve a lot of those challenges.
Yeah, those are some key topics there. I mean, a variety of things. I mean, certainly you've hit on a big one in special education, the paperwork issue, right? The amount of work that is a necessity. There's important reasons why it exists, but it is really competes with the educator's time for doing the instruction, the hands-on things that they're really best at, right? And it also can be an impediment and demotivating for educators to become special educators, right? Or to, adapt and specialize in any kind of these hard to fill roles that schools are filling. We know that across many states, if not all states, there are at least some areas of teacher shortage. And persistently, there are certain hard to fill roles in STEM, right? Certain subjects and special education, one of them that always comes up. And there just are not enough special educators. And when you are one and you feel like I got into this for a reason to work closely with kids, but I'm spending all my time doing paperwork, it really takes the joy out of it. It
Mhm.
also takes away from the time those kids can spend with the teachers. And I think there are efficiencies to be had here, as you highlighted. Are there some really, can you pull out some specific examples of, I mean, we talked about it, I think in broad terms, you referenced a lot of things, but like a couple of those really even more granular things where it's like, this is a really great application of the AI where it can do this just as effectively, if not more, than a person can do it much more quickly. And then there's
Yeah.
this huge time savings, there's this expertise savings, this mental, energy savings, right? From all those extra tasks.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I can give you one quick, very relevant example. So, about 2 years ago, we released an AI speech therapist named Jessica as a
Mm,
product that our customers are using on betterspeech.com. And what we're seeing is with AI, somebody that has a speech impediment, regardless how great the SLPs, the speech therapist is, there's always some embarrassment with your speech impediment, especially if you
mm,
stutter, if you try to do the practice right and it doesn't work well for you. But it's amazing how working with AI, and especially for children, right, in schools, when you can gamify that experience for them so they're much more engaged with a game with a Pikachu or with a character that they really like, and it encouraged them to do their practices. You can see actually an uplift in the outcomes that we have. We're currently running a clinical study with Syracuse universities to prove the data that we're seeing. We're seeing 32% increase in student outcome when using Jessica, our AI speech helper, versus just a regular therapy. And that's a really great increase in outcome because it allows those children to improve their speech, potentially get rid of bullying in schools, improve their academic performance and preparation for their career, obviously, if they fix those impediments, speech impediment that they have. And this is also, from a provider perspective, it's great for the schools. We work with some schools that are doing 100% group sessions, okay, because of the national shortage that you mentioned about providers that we have in the system. So when you take 3 to 8 kids sometimes in a group session, yes, is it going to be beneficial to all of them? Yes. Would they benefit more from one-on-one in that 30 minutes window? Of course. So now when you can put those 8 children in front of a system that provide them personalized therapy and personalized recommendation to improve their performance, they're going to get much better without a doubt. And we're seeing across the board. And so this is a very clear example how AI, when used properly in the right setting for a specific task, and it does it amazingly well, it can really improve student outcome. It's helpful for the team in schools because now they can they can spend more time with the children that really need the attention, okay, and can have Jessica to use with kids that potentially are more moderate and can work with her quickly in order to improve. And it's also a great way to take school and bring it to home, right? Because now you can work with Jessica, mom's phone, while the children is driving to the soccer match over the weekend, right? And do their practice and improve much faster, or do it at home, something that you couldn't do in the past because obviously you're tied for the therapist in school. So there's a lot of benefits to it, and I think it's only a matter of time until we'll see more and more tools being distributed in both district level and even state level. And this is what we're working with already, talking with states in embedding streamline across the board and bringing that innovations to special education teams, which their burden just increases. We participate in multiple conferences, and recently the big topic, the percentage of special education kids in school has increased. It used to be around 12 to 15%. Now in some areas getting 30% because of the coupon system and how parents basically putting kids in their ability to switch schools. So now schools that had budgets, okay, to just 15% now are facing double the amount of special needs kids. They have to serve them. So the ability to implement AI solution that enable them to do that in a much more efficient way becomes not optional, but becomes
Yeah. So if I'm looking at this from the school leader's perspective and considering what implementation look like, what are the barriers, what are the things to overcome? What have you learned about educators' response to the platform? I'm sure in many ways they're excited about it, right? And the opportunity to get support on some of these tasks. There's probably also some hesitation, just general hesitation with AI or hesitation with outsourcing certain things to technology that they're used to doing on their own, or even just working through the process of getting to understand and use the tool really well. So if I'm a school leader or a district, if I'm have an organization and I want to improve some of these processes within my special education department, what do I have to prepare for? To say this is what we need to do to make this successful, right? This is a foundation. This is what we need to talk about. This is how we need to prepare our educators to really make the best use of this so that it does support them.
Ross, this is a great question because obviously, if we had this conversation a year and a half ago, this will be a non-issue because the fear, so to speak, with AI coming to play in school systems, people didn't know how to interact with it, react to it. Obviously, the students themselves are the one that are integrating AI much faster than their teachers and their schools, and the schools are playing catch up. I think now we're in a very different world because even the DOE is recognizing AI and basically had a paper out and call for comments from different providers to make sure that we have the right frameworks on the state, on the federal level, and definitely on the state level to implement AI. But I think the approach that districts should consider in taking is like what I call the human-led AI approach. Okay, so looking at the technology as a way to assist. Okay, but educators always remains in control. Okay, so districts that we're working with, okay, we help them build really clear policies around transparency, privacy, accountability. And I'll give you an example. In our streamlined SPED product, we have more than 400,000 IP that the engine ingested in order to that 5 minutes IP, right? So we learn from the best of we take best practices, and it helps us to create it. But we help districts that are really large and want to put guardrail around their own IPs, okay, and they have the options to use that information in order to expedite or just use their own IPs and build a database based on that, and that kind of helps them feel very comfortable that that data stays within the districts. And I think that as schools are looking more into AI, it's important to kind of prioritize pilots that shows really measurable results. So basically time saves by providers, improved outcome, or reduce from compliance. So Streamline ensures 100% compliance because it provides you in real time and shows you where the risks are before you hit them, because the fee of missing that compliance is about $4 million per case per student that sues the district. Okay, so it's a very high fee, and you want to make sure that you're never getting there. Okay, so we kind of created what we call kind of mission control command center. Okay, that basically I took it from my previous life. I used to be a fighter pilot. And when you're flying in complex missions, you have in your helmet a HUD that basically show you the right information that you need for the specific second in that mission. And that
Mhm.
information is very different than what my co-pilot has seen and my wingmen are seeing. So everyone has their role and everybody see different information. All of that information is connected in a central cloud, so to speak. So it's coordinated, but it allows each one of us to do our job. The same happens in a very complex system like special education, that you have special educate, the directors, the assistants, you have the provider, each one is doing themselves, you have the SPED teachers. Each one needs to have a different dashboard that shows you the risks within their role and how to make sure that you're getting to the compliance. And AI allows you to enable to coordinate all of that and making sure that you're getting to 100% compliance while reducing 90% your paperwork and increasing the student outcome, which is what the mission that all special education staff members are coming to do. We started with a value. They're there to help students achieve better outcome.
Yeah. What is the most ambitious vision for what AI and similar technologies can do for special education by virtue of really making an impact on special education? Of course, that would mean that there was an impact on education overall, but what do you see as the potential for how transformational this potentially can be to really address some of the most persistent and sticky and hard to fix challenges that schools face? And I think a lot of it's all the small things that add up to big things, I'm sure, right? A lot of the tasks and different components are not huge in themselves, but they add up, then it becomes a pretty different process.
No, it's a fantastic question. So I have a big vision for AI in special education because I'm a big believer in what it can do. And I think that the field is shifting from reactive compliance, okay, to proactive student-centered support. And when I'm saying that, if you look at some of the biggest players in this field, they are reactive to the information. So they take an IP report that's created by the providers and they try to audit it to find where the mistakes are, okay? With Streamlines, we reverse that concept. So you build the IP already in a way that is compliant, okay? And so you don't have to do all those auditing afterwards because it's integrated in the system. And it's also integrated in the sense that if a state is changing its regulation, okay, what used to take months for the big players to go and shift their fields and do it one by one and make sure that it's compliant, now within a prompt, we can in 2 days basically roll out a statewide, fully implemented change that basically keeps them compliant. So I think the future systems like Streamline are more resilient, they're adaptable, okay? They are data driven, they hand changes like state change and turnover and budget seamlessly. They allow more engagement for parents, which it's becoming a very big thing in the field, to have continuous real-time visibility into progress instead of just waiting for the next meetings that they have. And what I think, and we see it already, is that uh, districts are starting kind of to look at staff time, piloting automation tools, some small, some bigger, okay? And basically what we help, and this is where my book come to play comfort override, is building AI collaboration training that shifts the notion from being an AI resistor to an AI collaborator.
So in the book, so that's a great transition. AI disruption is top of mind, and it really is largely framed around that, not exclusively AI disruption, disruptions of a few different kinds, but AI being a big one. How are you thinking about and defining what AI disruption looks like in the workplace, in individual careers, in the economy? I guess on the spectrum from replacing fields to on the one end and maybe the end where there would be the most fear to, I think, on the other end of the spectrum, people who are perhaps, super, super bullish to the extent of just believing that everything AI does is good and it automatically means we should adopt it and use it in everything we do, right? Sometimes maybe replacing themselves, or at least in my experience, their ability to think too much. You get too used,
Yeah.
right, over reliant.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Uh-huh.
it's somewhere in the middle as far as, that it just the technologies become a reality. They're contributing to almost everything that's happening in some way. Is an importance of having a literacy of AI, of learning its applications in a field, of knowing that the nature of how different jobs and career fields look is just going to continue to rapidly evolve, maybe more than ever before. But how are, when you're framing it for the reader, for people you're talking to, describing to them, this is what I mean by AI disruption, right? This is what to think about. And then from that starting point, then we can get into what it looks like to get out of your comfort zone, right? The override, all of those pieces. But I think it requires a common understanding at the start of where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very valid point, and I'm a big believer in science and in numbers. And so maybe I'll start kind of with that. And I agree with you that probably the outcome will be somewhere in the middle. So it's not the doomsayers and the people that try to hype. I'm not a hyper of AI. I believe that you need to be realistic about what its opportunities, what is our dangers, and be prepared for all of that in the best way. So when you look at the numbers, 20% of jobs are going to be reinvented by 2030. Okay, so 66% of jobs are exposed to some automation. Okay, and so that's on one hand. And the other hand, you have 65% of children that are currently in elementary schools will work in a job that doesn't exist today. So it's not that AI eliminates all 25% of the job, it replaces it with other opportunities and other jobs that we're just not aware of. I mean, this is where the opportunity comes. And AI, as I mentioned kind of before, has a great potential if you apply it in the right way. So for instance, if we're talking about education, AI tutors improve student scores by 28%. Okay, so obviously there's a great applications when you're doing that, but you need to find the right way and to do it in the right way in order to transition your staff, both in schools and generally speaking for the general kind of listener, of what can be done with AI, how to prepare yourself to AI, because the pace of change is enormous. We live in a kind of this old world, which when I say old world, it's 3 years ago, that's the old world. And then a lot of things kind of accelerated enormously with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, just to give you a sense, in 2 months, okay, got to 50 million users, okay, which took radio 38 years to achieve, okay? So the pace of acceleration is huge, okay? And things are changing every day. Just in the last quarter, 86 new modules of AI were released to the market. Most people don't know about them. They only hear about ChatGPT 5 and Claude and Grok and etc. But there's a lot of change happening, and it's almost impossible to keep track with what's going. And because of that, there's a lot of fear within the average human being. They hear about it, they know it's coming, they see the change, they might play a little bit with ChatGPT, they see how it affects them, but they're really afraid, okay? So I can give you like a sense of, I'm the CEO of Better Speech, and we have a large team of 300 people. And what I told everyone, I sent them an email. I said, you have two options with AI. The first one is to be what I called AI freeloader, okay, which
Mhm.
basically means When you have an email to draft, you put it in ChatGPT, it looks nicer, smoother, you send it, and you think that you're more efficient, okay? And most likely, if that's what you're doing, you probably don't have room to grow in better speech and probably not in the workforce, okay? The option two is what I call becoming an AI lord, which basically means that you're using AI in order to create new output from the output that AI is creating. So you're managing a set of agents, and it doesn't have to be complex agent, but you're looking at the input that AI provides, and you create your analysis, and you're putting the human element into it because this is what we have. This is where we are so much better and we dominate, okay, in area and strategy, leadership, innovation, negotiation, all those elements that create, putting the creativity, okay, and in which we're going to continue, okay, to be better than AI, okay? AI dominates in things that are routine and repetitive, right? Data entry, report reviews, very basic analysis, things like that. And I think where people will that are smart now will look at where the partnership zones are, okay, where human and AI collaboration increase, like in content creation, medical diagnosis, journalism, financial analysis, and other areas where you can use AI in a smart way, learn new skills, adapt in order to build your capabilities to transition well into the future. And, one of the really interesting thing or that people say when you're getting a new job, right, is you need to change your future thinking. So in the future, I think that educator will ask not how much do you know, okay, but should ask how quickly can you learn a new thing, okay? And this is the same thing for employers, right? Because the old way of going to school, learning a 4 years degree, and then coming out to the workforce thinking that will serve you for the next 30 years is literally gone, okay? And people that don't understand it need to wake up and understand that now new skills, it takes you 6 to 9 months to learn a new skill, a new almost career, and you have 3 to 4 years to apply it. And in those 3 years, you're going to make, if you do it right, you're going to make a lot of impact and in some areas a lot of money if that's because you build that capability in that area, but then you have to reinvent yourself and find a new skill. So
Yeah.
I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've been through it recently where particularly in the current, like hopefully in the future, it's not always exactly the way it is today, but in the current employment market, right, with how competitive it is for every position and the number of candidates out there looking for opportunities. I mean, that is at the very least the tiebreaker, if not a factor that comes into play way before that is how much do I know this person will continue to learn and will proactively learn and will say, okay, there's either something I need to know how to do, I'm going to go out and learn how to do it. There's something I want to do, I think would be a new opportunity for us. And we're not just going to leave it on the shelf. I'm going to go out and really pursue some knowledge around this, whether that's learning to use certain technologies or whether it's expanding a knowledge base in any other kind of way, right? That it's going to become more and more critical as jobs continue to shift. We're already seeing that now, that what was my job when I first started it a year ago, a couple of years ago, is very different to what it is now. And who are the people who are growing along with that, right? And are getting
Yeah.
even more effective, and who are the ones who are, becoming ineffective and no longer a real key contributor in their role because the organization has outgrown them. And
Yeah.
it begins, I think, with the preparedness and the attitude toward I'm going to have to keep growing and evolving with changes in the workplace, changes in technology, changes in the market, and what's happening with our buyers, right? And how are things shifting around with funding sources, with just the type of talent that's out there, the the opportunities, what's addressable. And it's, I mean, a lot of it is, I think, entrepreneurial thinking that we've seen it a lot in some things that are happening with Gen Z right now with their increased interest in things like skilled trades and certain types of typically considered your blue collar type of fields, but that part of the interest is around entrepreneurial opportunities in there, owning your own business, being able to kind of be your own boss, but getting there more quickly, right? And having that flexibility. But I think people within all kinds of organizations, no matter their role, people who certainly never thought of themselves as an entrepreneur are going to have to
Becoming
adopt
ones.
some of
Yes.
those traits because it's all about creation. It's creating value where you are, and there is no more just I'm just following routines, because routines can be automated. Creativity is a valuable skill.
And it's challenging for most people that hearing this episode that are older than 35, so to speak, because by the age of 35, 90%, 95% of your behaviors are unconscious, autopilot patterns that you created over the years, okay, with neural pathways that were created and are fixed and making us blind to change. And so we habits are great, definitely good habits, positive habits are fantastic, but are as you build your routines in your life, it makes you blind to that ability or need to change in this environment that coming upon us, not only with AI, with climate change, with geopolitics kind of changes around the world, it requires us to wake up and change our behavior, okay, and change our routines. And this is what the book is all about, how you can do micro variation every day and use what I call the adapt framework in order to create small changes in your life, because you can't start with too big changes. Your body will resist to it. It's like if you'll start fasting for a week, right? Or a few days, it's not going to work, right? You can change your diet gradually in micro changes. The same thing applies here with little tasks, starting from you drive to work every day. You never pay attention how you got to work. It just happens automatically. You're talking with your family, friends, listening to a podcast. You don't know how you got there. Taking a new route to work, going to a different restaurant, even in your favorite restaurant, do a different dish. Those little things kind of create that little adaptability skills that as you grow, and in the book, I provide 90 days sprint plan that literally goes day by day, week by week, that allows you to implement those changes to create those neural pathways for the change that you need to be successful in your career and your future. And what you can see is that as you make those changes, it has impact not just on your career, it has impact on your career, wealth, even relationship, because it's just people don't understand how much change we will need to observe, okay, so much faster than we anticipate, okay.
Mhm.
And the people that are smart in now basically realize that they need to build those skills now before they become obsolete, because when you become obsolete, that's too late for you to make that change. Your value in the market kind of drops significantly, and now it's much harder to get back on track. So this is what the book helps people across the board, both for general career, middle career individuals, and also leaders, because leaders have teams that need to face that fear. Many of them, many of the AI investments now that you hear in the news of Microsoft making investment, Walmart making investment. Walmart just announced giving AI to 3.5 million employees. So if your cashier at Walmart is trained on AI, okay, you better off do that the same,
Mhm.
okay,
Right.
because they understand the value of it, okay, and they understand the value for the company and for themselves. And managing a team that is afraid of AI, okay, in schools is also hard, because as we know, some of the educators have been there for many, many years, decades sometimes, and introducing that technology is not simple. So the resistance to AI is definitely existing there, okay? And the idea is if you show them the opportunity of what it can do for them to their benefit and to their life, improving their life, they're transitioning from AI resistors to AI collaborators. And this is why the book already is being sold in bulk to a few Fortune 500 companies that are buying it to their employees to help them understand it and help improve the AI ROI that they have on their investment, because it's come from the person understanding that it's good for them rather than the management telling them that they need to do something with AI.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an opportunity. I mean, it's just an opportunity in general, right? It's an opportunity for, I'm sure, a lot of workers who previously were in a low mobility role to prove something new, to create value, to create a new opportunity for themselves. Maybe by learning how to leverage a technology within an organization or a role where it's not within that role going to lead to much more for them. It allows them to build skills to move into something better. Maybe it just enables them to demonstrate that they're capable of more. I think about like when I have people who work for me, like I have a clear picture and a lot of things of what I would like accomplished, right? And I'll communicate what I know and what the goals are and the vision. My hope is that they will take that and make it better, right? Do something
Yeah,
better with it,
of
find a
course.
new way, right?
Yeah.
Not only do exactly what you're asked, but understand the objectives and understand what we're trying to accomplish, and then add your own thoughts and insights to it and come up with something that is augmentative. And I think that's an opportunity that's created for a lot of people, regardless of their role, to say ideas and people who have ideas and think in terms of ideas and understand how to interrogate them and come up with practical applications, and it requires insight into what is my organization, what are we working toward, what opportunities are in front of us, so what ideas would be good. But it's often in short supply, whether it's people with a lot of advanced degrees and education, people who are in any other kind of field, that can really add value to a team, to an organization, the people who will come in and spot those opportunities to improve on things and say,
Yeah.
okay, this is the way we've always done it. And we would just fall back on our typical routines. And if we just keep doing it that way, there's diminishing returns. The market dynamics have changed. We're continuing to just do what we've always done. And it's clear that it's the easy thing. And sometimes it's easy because it's easy to justify. Just say,
Mm-hmm.
look, it
Right.
worked before,
That's one.
we know how to execute on it, whatever, or it's what our leadership asked us to do. So we have
Yeah.
air cover. Basically, if we just do what they said, then we don't have to, we're not
Yeah.
going out on a limb. And
Right.
it's harder to respond to that ask from leadership and say, well, we have a different thought here, a different insight.
Yes.
Here's what we recommend. We think we should try this. And
Yeah.
maybe some people are afraid that the answer is going to be no. I think a lot of people are afraid the answer is going to be yes. Okay,
Oh, now we need to do the hard
now
work. Yeah.
now I got approval to try it my
Yeah.
way or try my idea, and now I'm accountable if it doesn't work.
Yes.
But the people who can do that and then can then deliver, now they've really established their value in the organization and what they can do.
Right.
And ultimately, I think flipping it to organizations and what leaders need to do
Mm-hmm.
to continue to evolve their organizations, what it looks like to empower, identify and empower talent and know who are the people here who are going to keep us moving forward and drive that progress, and how do we make sure that they are feeling like they are, fulfilled in that, and they are having opportunities to grow and really contribute to the top of their capability. That's how to do it, right? And if it's just we're just having an endless churn because people are outgrowing their roles and leaving, or we're not really putting people in position to contribute, we're not taking advantage of our resources, that's an organization that's probably not going to last.
Not going, yes. I always kind of give the example of Netflix that used to be the number one in renting DVDs. Most people don't even know that this used to be their business. They took strategic decisions to now change and take a huge gamble on streaming before it became a big thing versus Kodak that literally built their business on film, cameras and film, mainly the film processing, and actually invented 25 years before the digital camera. It's their patent. But because of that notion that you mentioned before, of like, we've done these things for so many years, it's so profitable, we're not going to disrupt ourselves. And what organization and individual need to understand that a change is now the norm. It's not something nice to have. You have to build your system to prepare for change. So the flexibility to change direction, to abandon the limiting habits and routine, and choose a better path forward. So if somebody would ask us, what are the three things that you would recommend people? And I wrote the book with dedication to my children. I have two teenage children, and they're top of mind for that. Okay. Is one is learning daily new skills. So, and it happens on a personal level, it happens on a corporation level, give access to, and there are services providing that provide you little courses on how to prompt, how to work with AI and understand. The second thing is use critical thinking, okay? So always cast doubt on first answer that you get by AI. It still hallucinates and can make up sources. So you always need to use your judgment, you do your analysis and apply that. And the third one is like find the place where you as a human being is always going to be better than the machine, okay? Which is the creativity, the strategy part. And you can do amazing thing with AI as a tool. You have to make it human-led. And if you apply those three things, both individually and professionally, you'll be in a great position to face AI disruption and become a winner and not just a survivor.
Yeah. Ranan, I want to close by touching a little further on institutions. We're talking about education here, and as part of the book, right, you write to individuals that the comfort override is about evolving intentionally or becoming obsolete. I think that's an ask that we're having right
Mm,
now of institutions. I think it's really prevalent in the higher education space, but it's also in K-12 about that they're the status quo
mm,
and the historical assumptions aren't really applying anymore. That the some of the gatekeeper dynamics about what it means to be on paper qualified for something where you have to go through this pathway, you have to get this degree, this diploma, that because if you don't have that on your resume, then you're not qualified for this position. And I think we're seeing that's no longer the case, right? And if there's no longer the understanding that that confers some unique experience or skill set, then
mm.
the more innovative companies, organizations are learning different ways to identify who can contribute. Financial picture is also
Mhm.
necessitating that you can't just stay the same and assume, well, there's always going to be just an endless supply of students who come through either because they want to or they have to, and they'll just keep paying the tuition if it's higher
Mhm.
ed, or even within K-12 in competition with school choice, different options, just different ways of going about the schooling experience. I guess I wanted to close with for institutions that are typically evolution, it can be a challenge
Yeah.
because of the way that they're structured, because of just the way that they have established how they operate over time. What might be a practice for a leader to try to implement, to think about what intentional evolution would look like, what it looks like to evolve toward something, toward a goal, not
Yeah,
necessarily just away from something, but toward a goal, and to do it right with that intentionality, mindfully for what we're doing, not just change for change's sake, but really to establish a vision for, all right, here's how we're going to continue to produce value in the new
yeah.
reality, right? And this is what it looks like.
Yeah. No, it's a great question because when we're looking at the implementations of AI project and initiatives across the board, we see it's primarily driven by kind of middle managers that are happy to use the AI tools in order to increase their productivity, their team productivity, and just become better. And what we actually have seen, and also from research in the field, that sometimes in management there is this lack of understanding of AI and resistance because of that. So actually they can be slower to adapt than what their team sometimes want to have parts of their team. So the way to go about it is to find that you is well contained as a pilot in which you deploy AI and you define before that what are the work processes that we are going to use AI to make it more efficient, that used to take us a long time before, a lot of paperwork, definitely we're talking in school environment, and we let this specific pilot run to the point that we can see returns from it. We can see reduction in times on paperwork. We can see increase in providers direct therapy with students, which basically leads to better student outcome. And once you have that win within that organization, it's much easier than to go to the board, the district board, and present that as a way of, here, we found here something that works. Now we want to implement it in other areas in the district. And there you get the buy-in of the old guard, so to speak, that are not familiar with those tools, but faced with money saving, time saving, and ability to reduce burnout, as you mentioned kind of before, by team, helps them achieve their mission. And for that, they're proving it and willing to run with it. So I would say start small, do a human-led AI integration with the project. It doesn't have to be the whole district for everything, all the system. That will be too cumbersome. Take one area. Definitely, we're talking about special education. This is kind of ideal because it's like 15, 20% of your student body. So you can do the 20-80 rule, get a success there, and then apply it for the rest of your district in other systems. But that would be my recommendation. And that's what we've seen as the successful path to get the buy-in across the board.
Excellent. Well, listeners, the book is Comfort Override. You can find that wherever you get your books. The company is Better Speech. You can learn about them at betterspeech.com. Ronan, anything in particular on your website, for your company, for your book? Anything else you want listeners to check out?
Yeah, if you're a special education director in school, the website is streamline-sped.com. You can see Jessica, the AI LP helper, and other way, the mission command center that I mentioned. And would love people to learn. And definitely now in the next couple of weeks, the book is widely available in a very affordable way because my goal is to expand the mission and make more people AI collaborators. So reach out to it on Amazon or any kind of online way, and soon it will be in stores.
Excellent. We will put the links below to where you can find the book, where you can learn about Better Speech and all of the related resources here. So check all of that out. Listeners, if you have not already, please do subscribe to The Authority. We'll have more episodes coming your way every week. We have a lot of great conversations on the way here, so we hope you'll join us regularly. If you're enjoying the show, we really do appreciate those 5-star reviews on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. They really do help new listeners find the show. And we've been kind of growing steadily here. New folks have been joining, so we really appreciate all of you who have been with us. And Ronan, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Ross.
This episode was edited by Gage Sanderson.